All right, welcome everybody. SpeakuP Monday, grab a seat, brother. So, as you know, this is episode number 427. Now tonight, every week is very special. Tonight is interesting. We have Rick Otton that I'm going to get into in a minute. But the funny thing was, and this happens every now and again, is that we met last week.
That was funny.
We met last week. I said, Rick, in 6 days you're going to be a guest on the show. He's like, okay, right. So firstly, I just want to thank you, Rick, for being a good sport, right, and just going for it. You were introduced by Victoria, not a beautiful friend, and Chris Wakeford in Sydney, if he's watching. So just welcome, mate. Welcome.
Okay, good on you. Great.
Yeah.
Glad to be here.
Oh, I'm glad you are here. So tonight, we're going to have this great show.
Yeah.
Now, it is focused around real estate and business.
Okay.
So in a minute, I'm going to do a very long intro, which you'll probably have nothing left to say afterwards, right? But a very long intro to give you, watching online, an idea of why we have Rick here and why it's so interesting and what we're going to learn tonight. So before we do that, as you know, my name is Robert Ian Bonnick, and I'm the founder of SpeakuP Monday. This is episode number 427. Also the founder of RIB and Associates, which is a growth strategist, a gateway to Indonesia. And we help foreign companies, medium and large, not just we don't set up the PMAs. There's other incredible companies that do that. What we do is that we actually connect you to the business. So we connect you to your customers, to your network. If you don't have one, we create one for you. So that's the part that we play in this puzzle of moving to Indonesia for both foreign companies and local companies. So I have a piece of paper here. Permit me to read. So let's talk a little bit about Rick. So Rick Otton, a legendary figure in business who hit global headlines after he received a fine of $18 million. And this is $18 million Australian, right? For a book he released, which we're going to show you the book real quick because you can't buy it, but what the heck, we're going to show you so you know it exists. How to Buy a House for $1. How to Buy a House for $1. He got fined 18 million Australian dollars for this book. What else can we say about Rick? So with over 4 decades of experience, Rick pioneered the We Buy Houses concept globally, transforming property financing in Asia. He's recognized as Australia's highest paid speaker. He's authored best-selling books, including one in Australia's National Archives, known for his innovative solutions and mastery of subliminal science. So Rick offers remarkable results, groundbreaking strategies in business and in property. And just to add to this 18 number that you seem to like a lot, so you were one of the big contributors on an Alan Pease book about body language that sold 18 million copies.
Yeah, and when I learned about body language, the science actually didn't exist. And I remember back in '78 when Alan said to me, Rick, want to do a book on body language. I said, what's that? He said, well, it's how men and women communicate. And I said, well, we already got that. It's called sex. And he said, no, we're going to take it to a different dimension. At that point of time, we only had Darwin's Book of Evolution, and scientific journals was the only thing that existed on the planet Earth on the subject of body language.
Wow, it's amazing, isn't it? So look, let's get this started. So by the way, with this microphone's a little bit closer to your mouth so the guy can hear you.
I'm sorry.
So maybe maybe the first question, which is an obvious one, but I think it's a good place to start, right? So Rick Otton, what or how or why, and did you get into real estate in the first place? Give us a little wrap-up.
That was an absolute accident. I had no intention to get into real estate. I knew nothing about real estate. In fact, I came off the back of a television show on the Fox network in the US, and I'd come up with a TV character for Australian television. They didn't like it. I sold it in a Fox, and Fox said they didn't have the money to pay for the production. And I found a way to produce this TV show for Fox that ran on Sunday nights for about 22 million people. And then, of course, immigration came up and said, Mr. Otton, you got the wrong visa. You're doing a TV show in the United States, right, on a tourist visa. I need an I visa. Went back to Sydney, got the I visa, came back, and by that time they'd taken my spot out and put another show in, right? And then I'd been married about a week to my wife. Hadn't been married long. She's American. And she basically said I had to go and get a job, find out how to make some money, or go and work at McDonald's for like $2.19 an hour. And I thought, bloody hell, there's got to be a better way than this, right? So I thought, well, maybe there's money in houses. And I went to buy a house for my guy, right? And at the time, it was the savings and loans, which meant all the banks had gone bankrupt in Texas and house prices had dropped 90%. So you could buy a two-bedroom, two-bath villa for like $4,000 or $5,000, right? 3 weeks ago, that'd been $80,000. So I went to see this guy for a house. He wanted $86,000 for his house. And I said, Doc, I want to buy your house. He said, I want $86,000. I said, but I'm a bit short. And he said, how short are you? I said, I'm $85,000 short. And so we agreed I could pay him $1,000 a month to buy this house. And I got home and I told Jane I was super excited because I've been married a week. I said, babe, I bought us a house. And she said to me, well, you haven't got a job. Where are you going to find the $1,000 to pay for the house? Which, by the way, made me realise just how smart women are, and they're actually more intelligent than men. So I went back up there, put a little ad on the paper, buy this house for $1,500. I was paying the guy $1,000, right? $1,500 owned this house. It was like a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, upstairs, downstairs, central heat and air. 40 people turned up. 40 people turned up, right? Gave the first house, they gave me $1,500. I gave that guy the $1,000, made $500, and 39 people said, well, what about us? We all missed out. So I thought, shit, what am I going to do? And I just thought there was an opportunity. So I grabbed a piece of cardboard, climbed up into a tree, wrote "We Buy Houses" on it to get more houses, and that was in 1989.
You know, one of the things, right, outside of you being Aussie and speaking quite fast, you better slow down for these guys, mate.
Yeah, sorry, guys, I forget.
It's all right. A few people here go like, yeah, the guy speaks fast.
Yeah.
You wait till we get cracking. Now, one quick question, which is an important one, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, we often speak about, you know, the tactics.
Yes.
But then we also speak about the mindset.
Yes.
Right? So there are people here who are, right, maybe they have the tactics, but maybe not the mindset, right?
Okay.
So look, I mean, I wouldn't take a straw poll, but how many people here, if I asked them to raise their hands, I'm not going to do it this time, right? I would ask them how many people would take that deal that you did. Now, most, I suspect, would not have taken that deal. It's like, well, I haven't got the money. How am I going to buy a house when I haven't got the money? So I'm not going to do it. Now, here's the thing. So the mindset piece being that your body language and all the rest of that as well. So if there's 3 things that you could arm people with, which is sitting here now, who want to get into real estate, for example, what would be the 3 key aspects of mindset that you say you'd have to have, and give them a tip for each one?
Okay, first of all, understand that anything you ever get into in any occupation in the world, everything that anybody knows about it is past tense. It's all process. So anything anybody knows about real estate was what they did yesterday. Anything they do about science was yesterday. Okay, so always be lead dog. So everything I do, I'm always at the front of it. Does that make sense? Everybody else copies me. So therefore...
How do you be in the front? What mindset does it take?
Okay, the mindset is, when I had my mindset and I bought a house and I couldn't pay for it, my mindset was, if this doesn't work out, I get on a plane and go back to Australia, right? So I had an easy out, right?
So in other words, have a flight somewhere else to hear from
right? And it was all that kind of what's the worst could happen, right? And I'm just thinking, so many years ago, I think it was, people get 1,500 marketing messages a day, goes through their mind, right? Now, if you're not got a point of difference, no one's going to notice you. So if you're doing the same as everybody else, you're just one of the also-rans. That's why when people speak to me to fix their businesses, I look at what they do and I say, if I try to do what everybody else is doing, we've lost. We must do it differently or you're dead, right? Because the way mind works. And so the thing is, take the attitude that when somebody else says it won't work and they can't do it, here's what happens. When people go into their brain, they look for commonality pieces in their brain, because there's 52 components in the brain, that support what you're going to do. When you have an idea, and I go into my brain to see if it's a good idea or a bad idea, I've got no support systems because you've come up with a new idea. When I see no support systems, I'm going to tell you that'll never work, it's illegal, and if it was legal, somebody would have done it before you, which is a nice way of saying I can find no reference to it. So the way I built We Buy Houses and all the companies I've built is people have always said it won't work based on the fact that they've got no references around it. Do you understand? Okay? It's not that it won't work, they've just got no references in their brain that they can say, oh, it's just like that. Oh, it's just like that.
So we're going to get your chair, young lady who just came in. Thank you, Hadis. So basically what you're saying is that, number one, realize that you need to do something different that's not being done.
Got to be different.
Number two, expect people to say no.
Yes, please.
It won't work because they're referencing their past.
Yes.
Right? Of what's been done.
Correct.
Not what can be done.
Correct. And there's a gentleman there from England, and you'll probably know when I took lease options and creative financing and We Buy Houses in the United Kingdom in 2002, every single lawyer in that country told me it was illegal. But when I said to them, show me the big book that says it is, no one could show it to me. Now, all the lawyers say it's legal, but the law never changed. Okay? So people always go by what they know.
Yeah.
Okay?
So I'm getting a message to say, Rick, slow down a little bit more.
Yeah, sorry.
Too much information. I know there's so much to say.
No, well, you know what happens?
Rick.
The average person speaks about 130 words a minute. I speak about 180. And when I get excited, I've been known to gust up to 230 words a minute. So, but I'm going to cut
It's
that.
going to be that kind of a show, folks. Just say it. Watch it back on YouTube, half speed, you'll be fine.
So, where do we want to go from here? What's the next question?
So you had three things, right? So three kind of mindset tools. So the one there you've got it said, do something that's not been done before, continue from there.
Yeah, okay. Now, you've got to remember there was a couple of different environmental changes, right? When I started, I was in Australia. Now, Australians have a different mindset from the United States, but this goes back to when we had the colonies and we brought everybody in from England. And I'm not going to go into this because it's 15 minutes long, but it's all about why Australians are much more negative about business than Americans. It has to be our culture. It goes back. We're not going to go there today. When I went to the United States, if I made $1 million or did something creative in Australia, I would have been told all the reasons why you could not do it and it's against the law. When I went to the United States, everybody was like, not only is that fantastic, but why haven't you done it 10 times more? Do you understand? It's a different energy. So always hang out with people who represent where you're going, not where you've been.
Love it.
Okay, so when people represent where you've been, get rid of them. All they're going to do is hold you back. Because can I just tell you, everybody wants everybody else to stay in the swamp so everybody stays warm. When you start climbing the mountain, you're suddenly exposing the other people in the swamp. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I love it. So what you've got, number one, is about if it's being done already, don't expect people to have a different point of view about it.
Yeah.
Expect naysayers.
Yeah.
And then what you're saying is it's the ones you fly with, right?
Yeah.
So fly with the guys who are the can-do as opposed to what you can't,
here's a
right?
statistic around that. The amount of money that everybody earns in this room is the average of your 5 closest friends. So if you want to be rich, just hang out with richer people. That's kind of it.
Got it. Beautiful. Now, is there one more that I can tease slowly out of your brain that you can tell these guys about? Maybe a number 3.
3 in relation to what?
Yeah, so we got the mindset,
Yes.
of people who want to get into real estate. So for example, in this room, I've got a few friends who are in the blockchain space.
Okay.
And crypto is one of the ways that blockchain can make it through. Now, the amount of intelligence you have determines your risk level.
Yes.
So some people will say, crypto would never. Maybe because their education about crypto is very low.
Yes.
Whereas I go to somebody else and their education is very high, they don't see it as being so risky. So real estate, we're all led to believe pretty much in this room that you buy real estate, you'll never lose. Right? It's a mindset thing.
Yeah.
So in relation to that, right, is there any other kind of nugget of wisdom that you can impart that maybe goes against what people know?
Okay, a couple of things. Watch how people go into a room. If you go to an event and people are paying, they'll run to the front of the room and fill up from the front of the room back. If people are going to a free event, they'll start at the back of the room and then go forward. Okay? Now, also, when you go to networking and business events, they have many property events in different countries around the world. I probably won't go, and here's why. Most people go to a property event because they've got a problem, but they're meeting a whole bunch of other people with a whole lot of problems. It is impossible for the brain to find solution in a room full of problems. Do you understand? Yeah, the brain can't do it.
Never looked at it like that.
Yeah, that's right. You never looked inside your head. So the thing is, if you understand that in a room full of problems, it's impossible to find a solution, right? You've got to put yourself in a different environment. And we're not going to go there now, but one of the reasons why when people go on holiday, they come back with a very smart idea and they go, I had a great idea, is because the biorhythm rate changes when you move away from steel and cement and you move into a nature environment.
Got it. Bonus. So would there be something about diving in? Because, I mean, one thing I hear in your stories is this, there's a moment there, well, probably didn't even cross your mind, but there's a moment there where people think, I might get hurt if I dive in here, and then they stop.
Oh, by the way, let me tell you something. I get hurt. I mean, I got done $18 million for a book.
We'll get into that.
Don't do that. That takes 20 years of practice and rehearsal. So you're not always going to get it right. You're not always going to get it right. I'm doing some things right now, and I'm sitting at a table and I'm going, okay, who do I have to surround myself with right now to give me the headspace and the energy to keep going forward. Do you understand? Because I'm pretty human. I'm going to go, oh, this won't work and this will piss off this person and that's going to be that. But who are the people I need around me as the support system to help me move that forward?
Thank you, because, I listen to quite a bit of, across the board, but I don't necessarily hear, the mindset of real estate, actually. Not so often. I hear tactics all the time. Buy this, buy that, but I don't hear the mindset. So thank you for that. I think that's very valuable. So moving forward, right? So we've got a few questions here. But before we get to these questions here, because people want to know, so you were fined by the Australian government 18 million Aussie, right?
Correct.
And as far as I remember from our brief conversation, they kind of knew you could probably pay more. But maybe give us a brief understanding of how that happened and why it happened and what you learnt from it.
Oh, I learned a lot. I think just about everything I've ever done, I've learned a lot. I remember when I wanted to write the title for this book, and what happened was, in 2011, the Australian government changed the credit code laws. And they brought out Article Section 18A, but most people in Australia never reads credit code laws. Well, I do, right? And Article 18A that basically said if you could no longer pay for your house in Australia, you can give your house to someone else as a free gift as long as the bank approves it. Right, and I thought, but no one knows this. So I thought I'd write about this new piece of legislation, and I said to my wife, I'm going to write how to buy a house for $1. And if you look at the way I designed the book, it was based off the body language. It was hot orange, so it would light up at night when the shops were shut, right? And it was basically saying that for $1, you can now take over someone else's home loan in Australia, which you could never do before. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Right. Now, but the courts look at this stuff literally, and they go, well, you can't actually buy a house for $1. And then they had a gentleman come into the court who was about 45, and he went to buy a $1.5 million condominium for $1, and the agent wouldn't give it to him. And basically, I remember my wife said to me, do not do this title for this book because you're just going to really upset everybody. And I thought, yeah, but I'm always upsetting everybody. And it was super, super cut through. Now, here's what's interesting. The fine, because it was the biggest fine in Australia's corporate history, bigger than Apple Computer, bigger than the Ford Motor Car Company, probably got front page of the paper all around the world, right? So the amount of business it gave me, either pro or con, to buy that now it's like $300 if you can get a copy, right?
Now, real quick, now be honest. I'll know if you're lying, right? Yeah. We're going to go to the guys for a second. Put your hand up if you listen to your wife about important decisions. Raise your hand. Come on, Mick. Raise your hand, mate. You'll get in trouble otherwise. All right, great. Keep your hands up. Keep the hands up. Keep your hands up. Now, so keep the hands up if you've messed up one time, you didn't listen, and you got seriously hurt.
I'll lead the pack on that.
It's everyone. Yeah. It's 100%. Again, we don't make up the questions; they just come through. But you know what? Like one of the things which with my partner, right, Marina, if she's watching, she has that ability. Like half the people I meet, she'll tell me what she thinks of them, and sometimes I don't. And then about 6 months, a year later, like you wouldn't believe what happened. And then she just, when your wife or your partner just gives you that look. And you don't even have to. You don't have to tell them to ask them to open their mouth. It's like that. I told you so. Look. Yeah. Look,
and most people say they'll be on the cutting edge. Well, I was on the bleeding edge, right? So, in actual fact, I probably broke every corporate law in Australia with this book. I just never read the back of the bus ticket. So when they said to me all the laws I broke, I said, "Get out of here! Is that a law? Get out of here!" Right? So I broke probably every corporate law. Yeah.
So all right. So we'll get on back to serious stuff. So we'll get onto. So what did you learn? Now I know there's a ton of things you learned. So maybe the top two that are relevant to today's topic about real estate and investment and so on.
In relation to I probably would think twice before starting a business in Australia again. No, the top two things. Gee whiz, there's just so many little things. I think. Yeah, look, I think, as I said, I went too far on this book, right? Yeah. And there was a lot of people saying, don't put that book out. And then, of course, I brought out the following one. So what did I guess, first of all, listen to my wife, because she's just smarter than I am, right? That's the first thing, and I think that's the case for many cases. And I think The second thing might be, and I want to say this, but I don't want to destroy the enthusiasm in the room, right? Which is sometimes you're going to come up with an idea and it's just going to be a little bit too far out there and you want to be lead dog and you want to change the world. My whole thing was to change the world, right? My whole mission statement was to go across the entire planet and change the way we all buy and sell houses. But sometimes you're just going to go a little bit too far, right? And at the end of the day, I remember the government did say to me, Mr. Otton, we don't like what you're doing, right? What I was stupid enough was not to understand what they were saying was, Richard, stop it, right? Whereas I was going, I know you don't like what I'm doing, but it's legal, right? But I didn't read between the lines, which was stop doing it, right? But I don't want to say don't do something because, guys, then people won't try and have a go. So it's getting that balance, and I just went too far.
You know, I spent 25 years in Australia, right, in Sydney, and one of the things which I do like, you know, everywhere has something, nowhere has everything, right?
Yeah.
One thing that I do like about Oz in that higher echelon is that it is about that. Just have a go.
Have a go.
Just have a go. America, New York is like can-do attitude, but there's just have a go, you know? So I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Okay, so one thing you said, and then we'll get back to the reason why everybody's here.
Yeah.
So you said you wanted to change the world.
Yeah.
Because this kind of clicks with me, right?
Sure.
That's why I do the show.
Okay.
Right? It's about, but maybe in a different way to you. So when you say you want to change the world, why did you want to change the world? Do you still want to change the world, and how are you doing it?
Yeah, because if you think about most of the process and everything we do, anything that's considered standard is not necessarily the best way to do it. It's just the way that most people do it. Okay? So if we go back to property legislation in Australia and England, America and all this, well, it goes back there to 1677. King Charles II in the court got the barristers to write the rules on how to buy a house in England. Okay? Now, that doesn't mean they picked the best way. They just picked a way that worked. Yeah. And then if people do it long enough, it becomes a standard. Yeah. So when I was buying houses in America with no money and the house prices were 10 cents on the dollar, I mean, let me ask you something, guys. If you could buy a house right here, a brand new villa for $10,000, put your hands up if you'd buy it. Okay, so here's my question, which is what happened to me in Dallas. How many would you buy? 50. Next question is where to get the money? Because by next Tuesday, they go back up to 300,000. So you start thinking real quick. Do you understand? Yeah. So the thing is, I've lost my train of thought. What were we talking about? I was on such a roll.
I know. Yeah. Listen, just keep the roll going.
Yeah. So it's just you've got to keep realising that whatever people tell you, the standard process of doing something is not necessarily the best, most efficient way to do it. It's just the standard way. Yeah. Classic example, Richard Branson. Richard Branson doesn't actually invent anything. What he gets is a standard process, recognises how inefficient it is, and twists the process to make it more efficient. Yeah. If you think about everything he's ever done, it's not new. Yeah. He just looks at a process and says, gee, that's an inefficient way to do that, and modifies it.
Why do you want to change the world?
Why? And I think it's because impact. It's like we're a long time looking up at the lid, right? And when I get there, it's like going, oh, God, I'm really proud about that. Like, I'm in a way really proud about this book because everybody across the world knows about it. No one knows my name, but if you talk about the guy with the $80 million book, people goes, oh, the guy with the $80 million book, right? So it's more about the impact of it and reason for being. If you don't have a mission, a reason and a purpose, that's where people get depressed, have anxiety and die. Give a guy, especially men, women it's different, but for men they must have a reason, purpose for being, right? And then a guy is just like a shark. You just point him that direction, give him mission, purpose, reason for being, he'll go places. And it's just exciting. I could never retire. Do you know what I mean?
Love that, mate. And very quickly, and we'll get on to the questions that people want to know. Yeah. So that's why one of the three reasons why the show was created 5 years ago, 426 episodes ago, was hospitality industry in Sydney. Some of you know, but most of you don't. So I was in there. We were pretty high level. We had the number 3 hospitality business in the world, right? And during this time, it's all of these hospitality guys, very successful. 3 of them who looked good, smelled good, had everything that you thought success would mean, all committed suicide in 1 year. No one saw it coming. So this thing about mental health is super important. And I realized with a little bit more research that Monday is the most common day for heart attacks. Monday is one of the most common days for people wanting to commit suicide. So SpeakuP Monday, remember, it's people inspire people and unity and diversity. So the whole point, and that's why we keep it fun, right, is that's what it's about. So if you can give someone some inspiration on a Monday is like you're dropping a stone in a pond of still water, and the ripples, the positive energy runs out and affects the whole. So that's why it's called SpeakuP Monday.
Okay,
right? So I relate to that. Now, let's get on to these questions. So you're in the Bali market, because there's a few guys earlier on were talking about, they want to know some tactics, right? So maybe just let us know what your company here in Bali is and what it does, and then we'll get into some specific questions about the Bali market.
All right, let me give you a little bit of a background. Chris over there, who said he knew me back there in about 2011, calls me up. I'm in Bangkok, Thailand, for some business reasons, and says, you got to get down to Bali. Now, I'll tell you now, guys, I'd never been to Bali, and I was never going to come to Bali, and I'll tell you why. My attitude about Bali, based on the fact that I knew nothing, was everybody was unemployed, and massive mosquitoes, there's no 5G. So I'm thinking, why would I come here, right? Chris says, no, it's a different place. Came down here for 4 hours in a plane. One of the things I realised, there's no finance in Indonesia. Then I realised there's no finance in any of the Asian countries. There's no finance in Thailand, no finance in Vietnam, all the Asian countries. But here's what's happening. There is a global movement of capital moving out of the Western countries, seeking refuge in the East, right? It's piling out of the West at a massive rate. And what the Eastern countries have figured out, as long as you make it easy for all those Westerners to come in, right, and give them taxation breaks, you give them immigration clearance, you give them residency and a whole other pretty things, they're going to pour in. The thing that's holding people back is only 1.3% of the entire planet Earth can buy a property in Bali for cash. Right? Now, it was selling these properties here for cash for 300, 400, 500. I'm going, guys, you're going to 1.3% of the world's population. What if we changed the model and made it easier for the other 99% to buy product in Bali? Would we sell them quicker, faster, for more money to more people? So I brought in Bali Property Financed, which basically says if you want to buy a villa in Bali, you can have it within a few days and just put a few dollars down instead of 300,000 or 400,000. Put a few dollars down, make payments on it. Now I've just made that accessible to everybody on the planet Earth to buy property.
So Bali Property Finance is the name of the company.
Yep, Bali Property Financed, yeah. And then there'll be Thailand Property Financed and Vietnam Property Financed, the family of companies. And all I've done is taken all what I've learned over 30 years with We Buy Houses and said, this is probably the greatest gift. I mean, Indonesia has just announced it's going to be the fourth world power in 2045, right? Do you know you've only got 8% of people in this country over the age of 60? 8%, and 166 million of them under the age of 30. It's a powerhouse country, and there's no finance for real estate. It was like, all you have to do is think different, and that's what we did.
You know, what I'm loving about this conversation is that the message that keeps coming back, I'm not sure if you think about it as well, is that just do things differently.
It got to be different.
Do things differently, but maybe don't go too far.
Yeah.
Right, okay, questions. So Bali market, let's do this.
Yeah.
So for those people here, we can get you a chair, young man. Get him a chair. The guy's been standing around forever. Take a high chair and sit over here. There you go. All right, so Bali market, okay? So let's do it like this. So somebody who really hasn't spent much time in Bali, how would you describe the market? And someone who's maybe been here for a while and wants to invest in the market, how would you describe the market? So one from a complete novice, understands nothing, 2 or 3 things, and then one who's been here already, who understands a little bit about what's going on, but how do you optimize them to get into property?
Okay. First thing, I want everybody to understand about property. All properties around the world have cash bits and debt bits. Everybody who ever transacts a property is only transacting to get the cash bit. No one wants the debt bit. And therefore, in just about every country in the world, the debt bit can be assumed and you just pay out the cash bit. So if I'm buying a house for $350,000, I'm never paying $350,000. If it's got 340 grand's worth of debt, I'm taking the debt for $1 and paying you $10,000. Does it make sense? Everybody's only selling to get the cash out. I want you to bring that back into Bali. When I came here on the 23rd of November...
Slow down, mate. Slow down.
I've only been here since...
He's so excited, you know what I mean?
I'll tell you what, look, slow down, Rick. Ladies and gentlemen, I haven't even been here long enough to age. I only got here on the 23rd of November, right? But by December, I'm like, this is the world's greatest opportunity, right? So first of all, I had to do, which everybody else does. I knew nothing about Bali property, and I'm going to suggest to you that a lot of the property people in this room know more about it than me. But I don't need to know about it. I just need to know smarter people than me. Where the mistake most people make is they try to become the smartest man in the room. I would rather be the dumbest man in the room that knows the smartest man in the room. Does that make sense? Because I'll say, I get you, and I'll write the check, I'll buy your brain, download it in my head, and go, you do that, you do that, you do that, you do that, and we make a profit by tomorrow. Does that make sense? Okay, so what I'd like to suggest to you is this. At a macro level, the barley market will continue to grow as the West moves from the West, and we're not at what's called tipping point. First of all, the nomads come in first, which are you guys. The nomads make up 13% of the world's population. They're here. They're telling the rest of the world. But it's not until we get to 20% we hit what's called tipping point. Tipping point is when mum and dad read the memo and it's time for them to move as well. So the market goes like this, bid. We hit tipping point, it goes powie, straight like this. Okay, do you understand? So we're not at the powie yet. Okay, we've still got the nomads coming in, telling the people in the West how much money you can make in a property here. People in the West still don't believe it, too good to be true, can't get their head around it. Do you understand? So this takes a bit of time. I'm going to suggest to you that if you wanted to buy a property in Bali, it's not the price that you pay for real estate, it's how you pay the price. And that's the bit that people don't get. They all get caught up in about the price, but it's how you pay the price. Right? So, for instance, people have, when you buy a property here, you'll go and have a notary. You'll have this expense. You'll have this expense. You'll have this expense. Whenever I buy contracts on property anywhere in the world, I buy what's called an all-inclusive contract. I pay nothing. If you're selling me the property, you're paying for the notary, you're paying for this, I'm paying for absolutely nothing, and I'll get you on the package price. Does that make sense?
Package price? Maybe explain that one slowly to people.
Okay. When you buy anything, ladies, if you're going to buy a dress, you're probably then got to buy the shoes. Then you've got to buy the handbag. Then you've got to buy the belt. Or you could go in and buy the whole kit, and the woman says to you it's $300 for the whole kit. If you think about real estate, when people, and I'm talking about traditional financing of real estate, traditional sense, right? People buy a building, and then they get a loan to buy the building. On top of that, they've got a repair bill. On top of that, they've got legal expenses. On top of that, they've got taxes. On top of that, they've got a lot of what I call out-of-pocket expenses. Do you understand? Rather than doing it that way, I would do it differently. I would package all that stuff in, get the discount associated with packaging all that stuff in, and now I'm getting a loan from a bank for $400,000 rather than getting the loan for $300,000 and having to find $100,000 to pay for my stamp duty, my lawyers, right? Yes. I get the seller to package everything in. Yeah. So I got one contract. But I would say this to you guys, I speak with many developers who come and say, okay, the average time to sell a Bali villa at the moment is about 6 months. Why? Because you're selling it to 1.3% of the world, and people must have awareness. People's brains go through 3 sections. One is awareness of the process. Then they have consideration of what is the competition. Now they've got awareness, and then they go through the buying and selling procedure. Now that takes about 6 months for the rest of the world that's not here to go through that. Do you understand? I can massively shrink it if I say you can have a $400,000 brand new villa tomorrow, put 35% down, and you'll never make a payment on that for the rest of your life, and the rent will pay it off in full within 4 years. Right? Well, that'll sell on Tuesday. That won't take 6 months. Do you understand? Because when it comes to real estate, 30% of the world want choice, 70% are looking for opportunity. I'll always market real estate for opportunity, not for choice.
Now, I have a feeling that I see people riding away. It's good. I have a feeling that maybe 30% of the room didn't understand that.
No.
So what we're going to do early is, so that microphone here is Hadis or Guzman. If anyone's got any questions, we do it a bit early, but that's okay. Just raise your hand. So just straight over there, yeah. So Hadis will help you. And then, because again, I relate to what you said in terms of being the non-smartest guy or girl in the room, because at the end of the day, like, if we are able for everybody to understand, I'm usually the non-smartest guy in the room, by the way. So if that person can understand, then we've covered everybody. So that's why I'm asking you, before we go any further, to maybe clarify, and it's led by you, not by Rick or myself. Yeah, Carsten.
Hear me?
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
test, wonderful. So my question is, you were talking about 30% down payment to get the rest financed.
So where we're going to be really careful now is we can go down a rabbit's hole. There's probably 60 different ways I can finance a piece of property. And once I start getting very specifics in a room like this, then people go, well, how do you do that? How do you do that? How do you do that? I can stay at concept with you, and I can give you a lot more detail later. But once we go down this rabbit hole, it's going to get very specific. But basically, here's the thing. I can make a transaction work by, if a buyer comes along, puts 35% down, I can make it work that the developer could even make more profit than he would have normally made had he sold that place for cash. Selling it on a 35% deposit, the developer will get more money and he'll sell the property within a few days. Now, the logistics of how I do that, I've got to sit you down on a piece of paper and walk you through it. Does that make sense? By the way, I'll tell you why. It's going to screw your head up because no one does business like Rick Otton's head does. And it's virtually going to upset the basic ways that you've been doing transacting. But I'm just really conscious about going into rabbit holes here. Okay?
No, but listen, this is why we do it, right? So people get that message as well. So is there a follow-up to that, or you're good?
Well, no, I didn't really start to ask the question. I was just starting about the 30% down payment.
He's fast.
For the, can you do this also through a collateral? And if we can do that, I'd like to do that.
So are you talking to me from the point of view of a builder, a developer, or a customer who wants to buy a property?
Investment company, giving a sample example with my personal house, using it as a collateral to refinance a new building.
Okay, so usually the way I fund all my properties, I very rarely will bring in third-party financial institutions. I normally fund all my properties either through the people involved in the transaction, maybe in a private investor every now and then, but usually I get most of the funds to buy all my properties around the world from the seller who's selling the property.
Perfect. Maybe you can talk later with me.
Yeah. Okay, that's great.
Thank you, Carsten.
Thank you.
So any other questions for clarification?
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone's good so far? Okay, that's good. All right, let's go for this. Yeah, sure. So just to Toby here, yeah. Remember, don't be shy to ask questions, right?
I'm very happy to answer all the questions. I'm just really conscious about how easy we can go down a rabbit hole.
It's all good, right? I got it.
So, just really quick one. So, if I'm the developer, where do I get my finance? I mean, that's nice and good for the customer who's just buying the villa. That's my question.
That's a very good question, sir. Thank you very much. Okay. Well, there's about 15 different ways we could do that.
Okay. Just go for one.
I'm sorry?
Maybe just
one.
Try
Let me ask you something, sir. When you develop or you build a piece of property, right? Okay, could you say that the initial fees might be the acquisition of the land and the actual building cost of building the product? Okay, so therefore for a lot of developers, if they can get that met up front, they're happy to carry back on the rest. Sorry?
Explain it a different way.
Okay, so when you build anything, right, whether it's a motor car or anything, you've got what's called a profit section and you've got a hard cost section. Most people, if they can get their hard cost section covered, they'll carry out for the profit section. So let's say I want to buy anything in life, right? And the guy says it's 100,000 and his profit's 50 and his cost basis is 50, okay? If I can get to the first 50, he will carry back the second 50 if I made the second 50 100. So if I said you carry back the other 50, you might say no. And I'll say, but I'll pay you 100 instead of 50.
Carry back? Give us another word.
Means you'll wait for it. You'll receive that second 50 at a later date. Okay?
So postpone that 50
You'll postpone it, and as long as I pay you enough money or create enough value in that statement, you'll postpone it for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, as long as I want.
Got it. Okay.
As long as the value exchange is there,
all right.
You buy into the value exchange.
Thanks for the question, Toby. I'm sure Toby's going to have a chat to you after as well. So we've got one more over here, brother Hadis to Dedi. Everybody okay in the room?
Thank you so much, brother Rick. I totally understand what you meant there. Just to clarify that, like for example, in my case as well, if the rent for like yearly just 25 million, and then I go to the owner, I say, hey, look, I can give you 30 million, not 25, but you gotta give me two years right?
Correct.
Yeah, no payment. And then I'll develop it. I build the villa for you and all that. And then they're like, oh, really?
Yeah.
They're happy. So
let me
deal.
give you a deal I'm doing right now, which
Sure.
might explain for a lot of people, right? This is one a bank. We have an Indonesian bank that's going under at the moment. It's got a defaulted loan.
A bit closer.
Okay, it's got a defaulted loan. A guy called me up from Uluwatu, one of the property investors here. He said, Rick, could I get hold of 10 mil? I said, why do we need the 10 mil? He said, well, the bank needs 6 mil and the development's 4 mil. That means we're into it for 10 mil. We flip it and we're out for 20 mil. I make a 10 mil profit, you understand? And he wanted me to find 10 mil. I said, we're doing it the wrong way. Rather than paying out the bank 6 mil and doing 4 for the fix, let's go to the bank and say to the bank, listen, bank, you've been carrying this debt for 12 years unpaid. We'll give you 7 million instead of 6, but you've got to carry it for 6 months.
Postpone it for 6 months.
Postpone it. So the bank, because it makes an extra $1 million in 6 months, which is the 30% return on its asset, is prepared to hang out another 6 months. Do you understand? Now I'm putting no money in. I'm not finding 6 mil. What happens is, before I was going to make a 10 mil profit, now I'm only making a 9 mil profit because I've got to pay an extra $1 million to the bank. Do you understand? But the bank hung out for me. So here's my question. Would you rather make a $9 million profit with no money invested, or would you rather make a $10 million profit with $6 million invested?
The first one.
There we go.
The first one, yeah.
But can you see the point? I got the bank to carry out and push back the obligation of the loan as long as they can see the profit. Let's be get in, get out. Okay?
No.
Perfect.
No.
All right.
Did you have a question?
No, that just
Thank
want to
you.
clarify, help
But
clarify.
what you were saying was perfect. That's how I do that all the time.
It's good. It's good. Wait a second. We got Oliver over here. Oh, we got Chris. You in? No. He's just commenting on his beautiful haircut. So if we move the microphone across to Oliver, and then after that we'll get back
Move
to
on.
a few questions
Okay.
that I've got here. But thanks, guys. This is really good because again, through Dedi asking that question and clarifying it, it settles the people in the room who have got the same question but are not asking. So therefore, we keep everybody together. That's the point.
So,
Oh, it's okay. Give him a moment. It's okay.
Hello. Yeah, I mean, I love it. It's in the US are very big on this, and in the US they call it vendor finance.
Yeah.
And another way that I've been doing the similar things with businesses, and to basically ask the owner of the business if they would be the finance.
Correct.
And you give them more, but over a longer period of time, it's more of a mortgage.
Vendor finance.
yeah. Now, how you do that, you frame that up. If you say to a lot of owners, would you give me the financing? Most will say no. You're asking the wrong question. The question has to be, sir, in order for you to do it, what does the price have to be that I need to pay?
Yeah.
Everybody has a price. Whether or not I'm going to pay it is a whole different story. But when someone says they won't do it the way I want to do it, I say, what would I have to pay you in order for you to do it the way I want it done? And then they'll have everybody has a price, ladies and gentlemen. I just have to decide whether or not I'm going to pay that price. Okay?
The question, Oliver.
Yeah.
Okay.
The question: are you doing businesses as well, or are you just focused on property?
No, but in actual fact, I just got involved in doing 10 houses in Birmingham last night.
Right.
But they're not businesses, they're just mums and dad houses.
Right. Yeah.
But it was kind of like, I'll give you the 30-second on it because you'll understand being British. The student rang me up, he said, I want to make $10,000 a house. I want to sell these houses. The bank's going to come in and pay down the loan. Complicated. I said, don't do it that way. Just assume the existing loan, offer those houses with the existing loan to new people who can't get a home loan, and if they can get their first house in England for a $10,000 deposit, which goes into the student's pocket, they'll be gone within a week. It was just a twist, but it just got us to the same result, but the money hits the back pocket quicker. Yeah. But we can talk about it later.
And thank you. Great, thanks, Oliver, for that. So there's two things I want to quickly say. One is, so speaking to some friends in the real estate industry here, so you're Australian, and people here, some are Australian as well, or have Australian knowledge. So part of what's happening there, and I think this is indicative of what's happening around the world, is
Correct.
that, so the upcoming generation in Australia, where I lived there for 25 years, right? They cannot afford a house anymore.
No.
For the average person, it takes them 8 years to save just a deposit, right?
Yeah.
So now what there's an opportunity now for those people which have some equity to then, instead of investing that money in the Australian market, they can invest it in the Indonesian / the Bali market, right? Where they can enter for less and make a better return, right?
Yes.
What are your thoughts about that, if that is true?
Okay.
What are your thoughts about that?
Capital will always flow to where it's treated best, okay? And capital, if you look at the way return on capital in, say, Australia, Britain, United States, is miserable in relationship to what that return is in places like Bali, Vietnam, Thailand. The issue you have is people have no awareness. So you're asking someone to bring money into this country from a foreign country based on the fact that you tell them how good the returns are. Now, they can't understand those returns can be as good as what you say. Do you understand? When I was buying houses in Dallas and when I was buying from the US government, I was buying 3-bedroom homes for $500 each at the height of the crash. I'd ring up my friends in Australia and say, do you want a 3-bedroom home for $4,000 and it's $4,000 a month rent? They couldn't get their head there. It's just not possible. The houses had to go up to $35,000 a day before my Australian friends could go, this is possible. So it's all about people's understanding, because everybody looks at a market based on their market. So if their market's only paying a 5% return or a 2% return, and you're saying this market's 35% return, the struggle you have is getting people to get their head there, right? Now, I do a little bit differently. I don't try to get people to invest into Bali from a foreign country. What I'll get them to do with me is to do a joint venture with me in the foreign country, which is their home. Now I'm buying trust. Remember, people only want two things. They want trust and results. And it doesn't matter how many brochures you have, what you print out, what you're selling. You're only selling two things, trust and results. And the only way you can do trust, usually, quickly, is keep people in an environment that they're comfortable in. Does that make sense? And when they've made money in that environment, they'll look at what else you got.
Thank you. Some great lessons tonight. So I'm going to go to some of the questions we have left to answer. 8-question formula from no's to yes.
Okay. What we're seeing is the younger generation has no understanding on how to communicate with other humans. They all learn on little tablets, on SMS, keyboard warriors, but the young kid, when you and I grew up, the way we learned to communicate with people was running around the front yard, running around the backyard with the other kids in the street, okay? And if we got it wrong, the kids would cry and whatever. The younger generation doesn't have this. One of the reasons why we have binge drinking, which is a problem all around the world, is because the first time the opposite sex are getting to meet each other is at 18 in a bar. I've never spoken to a girl. I've only tapped on a little machine and suddenly, holy crap, she's real. Never spoken to her. I have no understanding of this. Okay, so the whole thing about how to get people to give you money was to bridge this gap that most people don't know how to communicate. So here are some rules, and then I'm going to give you the 8 questions. Okay? First of all, we have what's called liar, liar, pants on fire. It's called the inner cynic. Inner cynic says that the average human will be cynical of anything they hear past the age of 7. So most of us get all our stuff by the age of 7, taught to us by our parents. Once we get beyond 7, anything we hear, we're going to question it, okay? So, for instance, let's just say you don't know me, and I'm going to tell you how great Bali is and blah, blah, but we're not here. I know that 95% of what I say that comes out of my mouth, you're going to go, liar, liar, pants on fire, how do you know it's true? It's the inner cynic. You're only going to believe 5% of what I say. Do you understand? But if you do the talking, you will believe 100% of what you say. Yeah. So everything comes out of your mouth, you'll believe 100%. Everything that comes out of my mouth, you'll only believe 5%. So here's the craft. You never talk to anybody, you only ask questions. And when you ask questions, everybody else does the talking and they believe everything that comes out of their mouth. Does that make sense?
Got it.
Now, couple that with the fact that the brain only makes decisions in what's called emotional mode, not in logic mode. Logic mode of the brain just researches and gathers information, but it makes no decisions to do anything. All decisions are on the emotional side of the brain. Now, if we understand that, and people sometimes say to me, no, I make decisions logically. Well, we don't. And ladies and gentlemen, if we did decisions based on logic, we'd all be single. But the thing is, we all make all decisions.
I think that was delayed. But people are like, what?
Well, it's all emotion. So if we understand this and that we can take anybody to any destination if it's based on questions and we have them switch the emotional side of the brain, emotional side of the brain makes decisions, left side of the brain does not.
Yep.
Okay. So here are the 8 questions. And the first question when everybody wants to do anything is, do you know what's really funny? I've been doing this since I was 18. I've just forgotten the first question. Okay.
Go to question number 2,
Okay,
and one will come back.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay. Is that important? Okay. So the thing is, someone's going to say to me they're going to want to do something, right? And they're going to want to do something. And we get into it, which is basically, and I want to close this transaction. The questions never change. Is that important to you? So you tell me you want to do something, right? Yeah, I might have a Bali villa for sale. And I go, oh, you say, oh, you really like it. I go, is that important to you?
Okay.
Right? Because I want to know if you're blowing smoke up my ass or whether this Bali villa really is important. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Okay. The first question will always be the same. So let me ask you something. Is that important to you? Right? Okay. Now, and then you'll go, yeah, because blah, 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 blah. Now I'm going to go, why?
Why is that important? Yeah.
No. That's the third question.
Oh, okay.
You can't get these out of order. Okay? Second one's why. As soon as I've asked you to go why, I've taken you to a deep level, you're going, oh shit, now I've got to explain why it's important to me. Yeah. So now your brain starts thinking, why do you want this? Do you know what I'm saying? But I'm not telling you. So then you go, oh, because I need a place to stay and my rent's thing and blah, 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 blah. And then has anybody in this room ever seen a show called Columbo? Okay, watch it. Third question. Okay, he always goes through the 8 questions. Third question. So let me ask you something. Now, why is that important to you? And I'm actually asking you the same question a third time. Here's what happens. You're thinking, shit, does this guy not listen to a thing I say? Or I take you to what's called an alpha beta wave. I take you to a deeper level of understanding, right? When I start taking you down there and that third question irritates you, because I'm taking you somewhere because you're thinking, oh shit, I don't know if I really wanted it. But now that he's asking me, do I want it? Now, because I'm taking you there, I'm also doing something else. I'm switching you from the logical side of your brain to the emotional side of the brain. Yeah. Does that make sense? Yeah. And I know you'll make decisions on that side, but I've just switched you, right? Fourth question is, well, it raises a question. And there's a question, is there a way we could get you into this house so that you no longer have to live in that shoebox where you're living now? I mean, is that the question? Right? Okay. It's always the same, ladies and gentlemen. By the way, I remember when I was 19, I used to write these on my arm because I could never remember them. So question 4 raise a question. The question is there a way we can get you inside this place and also you don't have to live in that shoebox? I mean, is that the question? Because I've got to know what the questions I've got to ask, answer. And you're going to go, yeah, that's the question. Okay, next one. Number 5. Well, just suppose there was a way that we could get you in here this afternoon. We only had to pay $5,000 down instead of $300,000. And therefore you're out of the shoebox. Is that something we could do here tonight? Now, you're either going to say yes or you're going to say no. This is where people get it wrong. When people say no, and by the way, if there's no objection in a conversation, I'm always worried because all humans will always object to something, right? And when there is no objection, you've got to go, it's too good to be true. Do you understand? So you're going to say, oh, no, maybe not tonight, or I'm not too sure, or something. Where we get it wrong in language is we normally go, well, why not? What's wrong with it? Now, as soon as I've done that, I've just lost the connection with you and I've set myself up for a fight. Yep. Does that make sense? Yep. I've got to change it. I've got to shift it. Next question is always the same. Well, sir, you obviously have a reason for saying that. Do you mind if I ask you what it is? Now, what I've just done is given you credit as being a highly intelligent man. And although you might be as dumb as a box of rocks, right? By me just saying to you, you obviously have a reason for saying that, you might have asked what it is, you're going to want to share with me your thinking behind you just as you said. Okay? Right, you're going to go blah, 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 right? Okay, next one is feel, felt, found. And this is one we do all the time, but we just don't know we're doing it. Which is, ladies, you've probably done this with your husband quite often. You want him to go somewhere. So what you'll do is you'll tell your friends, honey, my friends were just saying there's this absolutely fantastic restaurant called the Shovel Inn. It's all you can eat. we're hungry, go for dinner, but I'll go anywhere where you want to go. Although my friend said that one was great. Well, the guy will always say, well, babe, your friend said it was great. So she'll do what's called Phil Felt Found, and which is you bring in another person's situation and let people buy into it. So I've just said to you, you obviously have a reason, sir, for saying that. You might have asked what it is. And you'll say, well, they don't let me bring dogs here. So I know how you feel. We find the case with most people. In actual fact, the other day, I just had a guy who had exactly the same problem in Canggu. And here's what he did. Blah, 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 blah. So the question is, if we could do it for that man in Canggu, is there any reason why that wouldn't work down here for you today? Is that the question? Wow. So we can do it, just like the man in Canggu. Those 8 questions I've given to you, really think. But you can virtually walk through any conversation by those 8 questions. And the last one is, which is the 9th question, when anybody ever says to you, but what about this, and what about that, and what about this, and what about that, the last thing you can do is want to answer these questions. It takes you below the line. The best way to answer any question like, what about this, what about that, what about that, is just simply say to the other person, what would you like to see happen? Well, I'd like blah, blah, blah to happen. Great, let's just put that in the paperwork.
Got it.
Okay.
Man. Wow. I've got a few people writing stuff down. What we should do actually is after this, we get this and we can post it with the interview and everything, right? Because I think that's great. So we've answered pretty much all of the questions that we had here. Insights from Australia's highest paid speaker. Isn't connected to this conversation, but I'm actually interested. If you had, just to give people maybe a rest in their brain, because they're like, I can see a few people that like full. So you're the highest paid speaker in Australia, right? So maybe give us, because some people here are speakers as well.
Okay.
So maybe 1 or 2.
Oh, I can tell you one.
Beautiful.
I just do something that no one else does.
What is that?
Okay. When anybody goes on a stage, there's 2 types of speakers. There's what's called a platform speaker or a keynote speaker. And quite often you'll see a speaker, and at the end of the talk, they'll want to sell you something. Yeah. They'll want to sell you something because that's how they make money, right? So what they'll do the whole talk, they will try to tell you all the reasons why you need this thing, okay? And give you the special price. But they've got a problem. And that is, they're doing the talk and telling you what you have to believe in. They're the customers. You're telling the customer, okay. But they don't understand something about human psychology. Human psychology, humans have 11 reasons why they won't do something, okay? How do I know it'll work? How do I know I can afford it? How do I know I trust you? What will my father say? What would my wife say? Will this fit my house? Like, there are actually 11 reasons that are going, scripts, right? They're embedded scripts, and they're going through as to why that person's not going to buy. So rather than me trying to tell you why you should buy, and I'm going to be fighting against those 11 scripts, all I have to do is have 11 stories that knock out each one of those 11 scripts. And then what happens is your subconscious, which controls your conscious, people think they make decisions with their brain. They do not. The secretary, this is the secretary, this is the boss. Yeah. The boss, okay? I've knocked out the 11 stories, and now the subconscious says to the conscious, well, we've got to do this. Do you understand?
I got it. Wow.
That's it.
So just to bring everyone back. So,
do you want me to give you an example of that? Would that help?
In a minute you will,
okay.
But just to get people on the same page. So this thing I learned from Simon Sinek, actually, who's another great another great speaker like yourself, right? And it's this thing about, and I struggled with it at first, but then when I looked into it, I realized it was correct. Uh-huh. So what he does is that, those who've got bald heads, it's easier. So if you look down on someone's head, there's like 3 concentric circles, right? 2, really. So one denotes the inner brain, and the other one is the emotional brain and the rational mind, right? Uh-huh. So what people think is that, we make decisions rationally, right? And then we add emotion to them. No. But through the course of this it's a 2-minute video. You can look it up. Simon Sinek, Sinek. And what he proved is that no, we make decisions emotionally, then we rationalize it. To give you an example, if I'm on a diet, right, and I want to lose weight, then I go and I do these exercises and I work really hard, 7 days on 7. I'm really proud of myself, right? Then I might see this beautiful chocolate bar in the window. So you know what? I deserve that chocolate. I've worked so hard. So there you go, emotionalizing the decision.
Yeah, the expression is that I've always used is we all make decisions on emotion and later on we find the logic to justify our emotional decision. So I might see a huge leg of lamb that smells great, right? God. And logic says, I'm buying it. Now, what I'll do later on the way home, I'll find the logic to justify why I should have eaten that. Because now I'm going to lose all these calories walking home. I'm going to do this when I get home. And I'll find the logic to justify why I just ate half a moose. Yeah, right? Yeah.
So we're going to come to closing soon. So are there any questions that you might have, right? Yes. So we'll go over here. Now, anybody else got questions so I know how many we've got so far? Just raise your hand if you have a question. 1 second, Toby. Raise your hand if you have a question. I'm sure there's more than that, but we'll start with you, brother. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll start it off. Thank you. Very enticing, everything you're saying, Rick. I have a couple of questions, but outside of this field. So my first question is, because you said try to be different, what is your view on shock advertising?
Shock advertising?
Like what Benetton did with its campaigns back in the day, and some other companies have done just to get back into the picture again and then maybe pick up later.
I've done very well. You ever seen those yellow and black ugly "We Buy Houses" signs from one side of the United States to the other? I'm all about shock advertising. I mean, I'm probably every lawn across America, if I go down the street, I'll make sure no one knows I'm the "We Buy Houses" guy. I'd be shot.
But how far do you think you can go in today's woke day and age to do that versus like in the 90s?
Well, you don't want to write a book and get a fine. I don't know. It's like my book. Okay, I wrote this book, How to Get People to Give You Money, because this book has never been written by anybody, right? It's very different. It virtually takes control of someone's mind, and it takes something. Here's my point. When I went to write it, everybody said, you can't write this book. It's just too ballsy. It's in the front. It's how to get people to give you money. That's just wrong. For me, that's shock advertising, right? It sells for $50 off on Amazon. I've said to you guys, if you go to my website, you can probably grab a copy for $10 tonight. So I'm there. I'm there with you 100%. Of all the crazy stuff I've done, I have one rule: never break the law, right? Never break the law. There's always enough ways to move around it, but you never break the law. But I'm for shock advertising, absolutely.
And then my other question is anything on price marketing. I mean, I have existing cases where, and that's where I have a problem probably with the West again, where I can show returns of what you were saying about your project. In Ubud, doubling the money in a short amount of time, or getting a 50% return for a year, and everybody in the West, even people I know that have worked with me, tell me no. And then if I tell them, I have a nice project here, it's got a 25-30% return, they'll be like, yeah, great, we'll go with that. I mean, that's what I sometimes don't understand.
I have two thoughts about that. First of all, people say to me all the time, am I negotiable on the price? And I always say the same thing: I'm very negotiable, but why would you want to pay more? The second thing is, it's not about price, it's value. Okay, so you can have any price you want on a product as long as you increase the value. So never reduce the price, okay, and then rip the stuff out. Always put the price on and build the value. Because remember, what happens is the value is created in the mind. It's not logic, it's emotional, it's in the mind. So where you might not see the value, this lady over here sees the value because she's got a different encyclopedia of what the value is. So I'm always about add the value to support the price, don't reduce the price.
Beautiful questions, Toby, as usual. Thank you, mate. So any other questions before we begin to wrap it up? Yeah, over here. So if you put them, thank you. So you should pass the microphone over here to another handsome, bald-headed fella. Hey, it's Chris. What can I say?
Thanks, Rob.
That's why it's come. You're in.
Testing. Yep. So Rick, you were mentioning feel, felt, found. You gave an analogy in regards to the wife and husband having a chat, and then I think you weren't able to finish that thought. Could you finish that part?
I'm sorry.
Wife in the dress?
Feel, felt, found.
Yeah.
Feel, felt, found. Wife in the dress.
No. I don't. The wife in a dress. I've lost it.
Yeah, no, sorry, the husband. Sorry, the husband.
I think it's confusing stories, mixing.
I remember. The only reason why I know this.
No pressure.
The only reason why I know this is because we've had this chat before. When the husband was going to wear something and she didn't want him to wear something.
Oh yeah, okay.
particular.
Sorry, I get that right.
Redeemed.
Okay,
Good job,
so
man.
what a woman. Okay, so what we can do is in language, you can add what's called words in there, which are called weighted words, which makes people go a certain direction. So if I want you to go in a certain direction in your thinking pattern, I'll weight the words. So for instance, with a guy, let's say a guy picks up the blue shirt, right? And his wife wants him to wear the red shirt. Now, if she's smart, she won't say, take off the blue shirt, wear the red shirt, because that's going to create confrontation, right? She'll say, hey, babe, what are you going to wear? You're going to wear that blue shirt. I thought you would have wore that red shirt that all the girls are always talking about. But you look okay in the blue one. 5 minutes later, he'll wear it, come out, walk out wearing the red one. Does that make sense? Okay.
Look, listen, that's a great analogy and a great question. I know you have a follow-up, but here's the thing. If your wife tells you anything, just do it the first time. Be honest, you do it the first time. If you don't, come on, you've got to learn, fellas, you've got to learn. Outside of that, so I interviewed a guy, his name escapes me, but he was known as being one of the most, so it's not about speaking powerfully, it's about speaking persuasively.
Yeah.
Right? So what I'm getting as well from you today, Rick, is, it's not the words you use, or it's a word you use, but it's how you use them. And it's about persuasion, right? So just maybe the last question, if there's one more here maybe. When I say, speaking with persuasion, what comes up for you?
Well, when we communicate with people, only 7% are the words that we use. 38% is the tonality of those words. 55% is the body language. Okay? Now, I can dictate what you're going to say by being in control of the words that I put into your brain. I know what's going to come out. For instance, if you're my wife and I said, I love you, what do I know you're going to say?
I love you back, more than likely.
Correct, there you go. So I've actually controlled what's going to come out of your brain by what I say. So in business, let's say you're a business person, and I say, look, I'll tell you what, I'm going to make you a principal and interest payment every month of $1,000. The first question you're going to ask me, but what interest rate? Do you understand? Because I know that's the word that comes out. So I never say to people, I'll give you a principal and interest payment of $1,000. I'll always say, I'm going to give you a thank you payment every month for $1,000. Now, as a thank you payment, there's nothing in your brain to bounce off and come back with. Do you understand? Okay.
Mate, persuasion. So, is there a follow-up? You're good. All right, great. So, any last questions before we move towards the summation, the wrap-up? Okay, good. So what we're going to do, Rick, is in about 2 minutes, maybe a little bit longer, you're going to have like final words, yeah? So this might be reiterating something that you think is important for people to understand.
Yes.
Or it might be something different of, you know what, I really think it's important, knowing what's happened already, that this gets said, right? So it might be something, in other words, that you haven't said already, that you just know, this is the one to say.
I'm ready.
Now, don't worry, you've got 2.5 minutes, mate. I have to do a wrap-up first. So the other thing as well is that feel free to let people know how to find you. Feel free to tell people, this is the name of my company, again, if you want. The book, tell them how to get it. All of that stuff, feel free. All right, to actually do that. You've got about 2.5, 3 minutes. So just firstly, I want to say thank you, everybody, for coming. So full house again tonight. Now, this is the thing. So this is episode 427. I think that's the fourth time I've said it. But the beauty is not only in the guest or the guests, plural, it's in you, right? The people that come physically and show up. Why? So what you don't know when you're watching online is we had a little bit of a chat earlier on where I asked two really simple questions, right? One was, what is it that you'd like to get out of tonight? Why are you here, in other words? And the other one was, what can you contribute? Okay? So when we ask that, what can I contribute, it kind of, after a few people, it gets you in the mindset of contribution, right? So now when that happens, a few things may happen. One is that one of the people here may realize that the person that they not need, but a great person for them to meet is sitting next to them or on the other side of the room. So each topic that we cover attracts its own audience of people who are interested in that topic. So in other words, when you come, it's like birds of a feather flock together. So this is one of the reasons why you come, because it's actually effective networking, as opposed to sitting there, getting some information and then going home, right? Because again, it's not what you know or who you know, it's who knows you in many ways as well. So by being here and showing up, Tropical Nomad is open for 24 hours a day. I don't suggest you stay here for 24 hours. It's your choice if you want to, right? But this is the time that you get to connect with some really great people. I won't call them out this time, but there are some leaders in this room in real estate and related topics that you would have to pay money to meet if you had the chance to meet them. But now they're right here for the next half an hour or whatever it is. So make sure that when you see a topic that hits that certain part of you, which is like, I should go to that, just show up. It's free, no need to RSVP, and you'll come and you'll meet these people which are really kind of in that mode, in that same frequency as you on something very important. That's number one. Number two, thank you to Tropical Nomad. Of course, this is, I think, 251 episodes here of the 426. So we have Ayu, we have Guzman, we have Hadis as well. So again, thank you so much, guys, being the technical partner. A round of applause. Wow. Right. Now, keep in mind as well that, so if you need our help, as I mentioned, the founder of SpeakuP Monday, RIB and Associates as well, and what we're a growth strategist and gateway to Indonesia. And where we focus on is that missing part with how do you actually connect with the customers and how do you create a community, a loyal community around them that supports your business, and how do you market effectively to get to that customer base. That's what we do. And we join the dots, right? So if you want to know any more about that, RIB and Associates, or just, Robert Ian Bonnick, you've got it. Now, before we finish with Rick, just want to again thank you, Rick, for being a good sport. As I mentioned, 25 years in Australia. I have there's an Australian part of me that kind of loves this conversation, especially you speaking at 180 miles an hour. Remember, if you're watching it again, watch it on YouTube, slow it down, right? Slow it down, and you'll get some of the wonderful nuggets of wisdom that you brought. And again, thank you, right? I mean, you've done some incredible books. Some have landed you in a bit of spot of bother with $18 million fine and all the rest of that. But you're a true founder, right? You're somebody who is a can-do guy. The bottle is half full, not half empty. And again, being in your orbit and being around you and hearing you speak, you've been very generous with your knowledge, which I'm sure people are going to really, really appreciate, and really generous with your time. So on this, I really appreciate you, mate. This is the first time of many. You know that, right? We're not done here. There's more we're going to do. So without further ado, next week's show is, again, the first Monday of every month. It's all about health. It will be the 20-something episode of it. We are really right into this Bali integrated, medical tourism model that is only really here in Bali. It's unique in the world. So next week we continue that topic on. Health Hub Bali is our collaborative partner. So Tracy, see you next week. And remember, if you're interested in health, Bali, and how this whole thing works, you've got to come in person, meet the right people. Okay, that was about 4 minutes, but who's counting? Rick, thanks again. Over to you to see us out. Thank you.
Okay, a couple of things I'd like you guys to get big picture. The world's changing massively. And we're never really going to get that from inside England, inside America, inside Australia. And what we're seeing is a slow demise of the West because to the East, which will be the new power. And we're already seeing these massive movements. And all the internet has done is made it easier for people to move around the world. Okay? So this is just going to be a continuation. It's just not stopping next Thursday. The second thing is, it's how do I give you guys something to walk away with without going, I've done all this stuff over 30 years and having what's called full head. Because if you get full head, you can't start. So I thought, what's one or two or three things that you could look at, and it just starts introducing you to some of the things we talked about today. And there's two or three things I want to share with you. And one is, which I've always had to bear in mind, when we're born, there is nothing in our head. There is no process. We try to walk 2,000 times and we fall over before we can walk. You will never change your walk once that process is locked in. That's why you'll see a friend down the street walking ahead of you going, I think that's John, because you recognise his walk. The way you clean, if I said to you right now, guys, all fold your arms, you'd know how to fold your arms. If I said fold your arms the opposite way, you wouldn't know how to do it. There's no embedded process. It'll take you 3 seconds to work out how to do it. I want you to be in acceptance of this. Everything we do and everything we think is what's been called an embedded process that we've developed throughout our life. I'm no longer as young as I used to be. People would be quite surprised to know I'm 117 years old. And the thing is that I have a lot of embedded process. Where I've got to be very careful is understanding that I have these embedded processes, and every time I have something crazy or wild, I need to speak to a younger person who has less embedded process, and they'll give me more range of thought. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So recognise that every time you want to do something and someone says you can't or you want to do it, remind yourself, are you getting caught up in your own embedded process? Do you need to speak to a younger person? And that's why nearly all entrepreneurs in the world are under 35. They've got less embedded process. The second thing is, one of the things you might want to start doing is every time you've got kids or you want to tell somebody something, think about how could you frame that as a question rather than a statement. Because once you can go through life only asking people questions instead of making statements, you'll find that you'll just attract so much more money and so much more people want to do business with you because it becomes all about them and not about you. So rather than me just saying, that shirt looks great on you, I might say, let me ask you something. Why do you reckon that shirt works on you so well? Well, it's because blah, my wife bought it and blah, blah, blah. So just by a simple thing like that, trying to reframe everything as a question and recognise the fact that everything is a journey. You can't shortcut the journey. One of the things I struggle with, I've been doing this for such a long time, it's embedded. So where do you start? I know that when I did body language with Alan Pease back in '78, it was the exact same model we did with this new book, which was humans can only process information in their brain up till that of a 12-year-old. Once you deliver information at a sophistication level above a 12-year-old brain, people have to think about it. That's why they can't make business decisions when you give them a business proposal. The book, if you look at the body language book, was designed with 2 syllables, 8 letters, with lots of pictures and cartoons in it. You'll see me there when I was like 19, because it's what's called the easy read. When we designed this book, and I knew the book was going to be revolutionary in what it does, it has 8 distinct sections. But it was like, how do I get it through someone's logic system who will not understand this? Because you can't just dump it on people. So again, I know that what I'd like you guys to do, especially if you're in business, whenever you want someone to buy into an idea, do it as a drawing. It is much easier for the brain to recognise and understand a drawing and take in information than it is your words. When you're going in with the words, people are going to think inner city, they won't get it. Everybody understands analogies and everybody understands drawings, and you'll do a lot more business and you'll have a lot more successful relationships if you go, babe, here's what I'm thinking. Get a piece of paper, we could do it this way or we could do it this way. Pick one. She picks that one. Great, done. Because you get talk, you know what I'm saying? Right, so, and the other thing is, but this is me, as I say, have a go at anything, because guess what? The world is full of people who get to the other end and they're 5 minutes on, they go, I wish I'd done that, I wish I'd done that, I wish I'd done that, and I wish I'd done that. You know, I wrote a book, and it was a bad book. Some people didn't love it. I mean, the book was great, but it doesn't mean I don't do another book. Do you know what I mean? So, it's just have a go at something, but don't try to bite off a big bunch, because it's just going to be too hard. You just got to do something small.
Where can they get the book? Where can they find you?
All right, well, you can find the book on Amazon or any bookshop, but if you went to rickottonofficial.com, instead of paying about $50 for it, you could probably get the copy for about 10. I think they got the audios there for about 3. But I just did a re-gearing on that for the group, right? That they can grab a copy of the book. And again, at rickottonofficial.com, I know a lot of the developers get me in for meetings and stuff around the island. If you want to speak to me, besides being just about everywhere on the internet, go to rickottonofficial.com and or Rick at rickottonofficial.com. There you go. And only use Rick because it's my name. And Yeah, I'll chat to anybody. I mean, I could talk for weeks with a mouthful of cement under marbles. Yeah?
He has already. He's got weeks of information into an hour and a bit. Round of applause, Rick Otton, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for coming.